Welcome to Soil and Soul, where we're regenerating nutrition from the ground up. Because, in fact, the only difference between soil and soul is you.
I've been doing this a long time. I've been in the industry a while. And, when you look at what are some of the most important things that consumers are looking for, they poll consumers and they say, what is it you're looking for when choosing a brand? And quality always comes up, right?
Yep.
70% of the people want quality products. And when you walk into a retailer these days, into a health food store, consumers, they can become overwhelmed with product selection. You stand there and you look at the aisle and, and you're just so bombarded with 50 different types of extracts and herbs and, this technology and, this absorbability and, all these different things. And, it's becoming a challenge more and more to really hone in on that one specific product that's going to bring you the results. And that's why I wanted to bring on our special guest today. Elan, welcome to our Soil and Soul podcast. You're one of our first guest, and an important guest because quality is of the utmost importance. And Elan comes to us from Alkemist Labs, proud partner with True Grace. Alkemist Labs is an established leader in botanical testing with expanded capabilities in phytochemical potency analysis, encompassing all herbs in commerce, including hemp. And they're proud members of the natural products community, serving the botanical suppliers and dietary supplement manufacturers. And Elan comes to us, he's the CEO of Alkemist Labs, and he's passionately committed contract testing laboratory specializing in these plant authentication, botanical ingredient identification, and quantitative analytic services to the food and beverage, nutraceutical, and cosmeceutical industry. So he holds a degree in chemistry from Cal State, University of Long Beach, and has authored numerous journal articles on phytochemistry and analytic techniques for the natural products and nutraceutical industry. He's a board member of APA, as well as APA's Education and Research on Botanicals Foundation. So, Elan, welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and it's so needed because, like I said, when you look at this industry, the dietary supplement industry, you look at, there's so many choices, like I mentioned, and it has to be quality because these people, a lot of times they've exhausted a lot of these measures when they've gone in, through their journey to health and wellness, and a lot of times they find themselves in the aisles of health food stores, talking to associates, reading books, and learning how they can further their health journey. It's important that the products that they take are actually going to provide the results that they're going to be spending their hard-earned dollars on. So, Alkemist Labs, Elan, tell me a little bit about Alkemist, when it began, how it began. I'm so intrigued.
Yes, well, thank you first for having me here. This is quite an honor. Alkemist Labs was born around 1997. So we were actually a tincture manufacturer for my father, our founder and CSO's chiropractic business. He made liquid herbal tinctures in our garage that's I remember as a child, and then we started doing that more in an office building, and started testing some raw material for our own quality's sake, and failed material, and it came back, and the vendors wanted to know why we failed it, and we gave them the report, and they asked us to do another sample. And another sample, and then somehow we became a testing lab. Found great pleasure in helping our clients and customers be sure they have the right materials so that it can be effective and safe, and, as you mentioned, gain the trust of the consumers. You fast forward now to 27 years later, we have about almost 50 employees and a 21,000 square foot laboratory, and we service the earth's supplements, particularly botanicals and mushrooms.
That's fantastic. And so you said 1997?
Right.
Wow,
That's when we incorporated.
That's great. And so when did you come into the picture?
1979, actually. No, I mean, it took the bull by the horns around 98. I was just working for my father, doing some microscopy analysis on the botanicals. Prior to that, and he said, "Hey, let's do this for real. We're gonna incorporate, and you can run the business. I'll run the chemistry." And I at the time just out of high school, so no chemistry degree yet. And then went off and studied chemistry in college, which is where my degree is. Um, Probably could have graduated about 7 years sooner with a business degree. Chemistry was very hard, but I got through it, and I've been running the show since.
That's great. And you know what's interesting is I actually went into a store not too long ago, and I was looking at a specific product. It happened to be a mushroom product, and I was taking a look at it, and I was looking at the label, and I was like, something's not adding up here. You know, I think it was something with beta glucans or something.
Right.
You know, and I was looking at it, and I'm like doing the math, and you know, trust me, I'm no mathematician. But I picked it up, and I said, I don't know, I just don't think this is right. And so then, you know, I called you. Remember, I called Elan, and I said, hey, Elan, I want to send some product. He's like, oh, just take it off the shelf and, you know, buy like 4 or 5 bottles, which I did. You know, and I sent it to you, and I sure enough, that test result came back, and it failed,
Right.
and I was shocked, you know.
Right.
And this is a brand, you know. I'm not going to mention any names, right? We're not here to do that, but you know, you look at Elan these days, and I think that that's one of the things as us starting a brand, True Grace. When you take
Right.
your money, when you start a brand, you have two choices. You can either put that money into marketing, TikTok,
Right.
Instagram, you know, all these different things, or you can put it into formulas
Right.
and quality and testing. And I don't know. I mean, when you look at our brand name, True Grace, you know, and grace means to give honor and credit to, and it's what we're trying to do here with the planet and regenerative agriculture, and proud supporters of that. But then also being true
Right.
to ourselves, most importantly, being
Right.
true to our retailers, being true to, you know, the planet and everything.
Right.
And so when you look at that, it's like, are these products actually failing, Alon? Is this
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about that. I mean,
Yeah. So in 2007, the FDA issued their new GMPs, Good Manufacturing Practices, which is basically the guideline for our industry to follow for quality. Prior to that, they existed. They weren't well enforced. The newest version, basically, in my opinion, came short of telling the industry what to do. It basically said use some science, make sure it's scientifically valid, not validated, and hopefully we won't see you in court. And that's basically where they left it. And so that gives the industry the ability to make choices on their own. And I'm no supporter of mandated anything, but I do appreciate, or I would appreciate, if the FDA did a little bit of a better job that used this method for this type of test. And since they didn't, the industry is left to its own devices to decide whether they want to be a marketing company or a quality company. And so as a result, people can use inferior or substandard methods to test their quality or their potency, and that's probably what you're dealing with when testing products off the store shelves for inferior brands that do the bare minimum of quality, and as a result, they have substandard results. Fortunately, what you picked up on was probably not something that's going to hurt someone, just not going to work and not going to garner return sales. But that other alternative does exist in our industry. Hasn't shown its face ever in a long time that people are actually sick from it. But yeah, that the FDA let us do our own thing, and our own thing is substandard.
yeah, and that's one of the things when you look at, I've been doing this as, you know, for, gosh, 30 years now. I've been in the industry. And it takes a lot to start a supplement company. But, you know, I mean, in fact, you see a lot of these people just, you know, the celebrities, and trying to really capitalize on the growth of this industry, you know, and looking at
Right.
that. And you see some of these people come out, you know, I started a brand, and, you know, they're not, you know, formulators. They're just picking up the phone and calling a lot of these contract manufacturers.
That's another business for
Yeah,
them.
and they're putting their trust in the
Yeah.
thing. And I learned very early on with you, right? I said, Elan, come on. There's no way that a lot of this stuff fails. But you know, he's like, Brian, you just got to test it.
Yeah.
You got to test it.
Yeah.
Trust but verify, and we did. And it was alarming, some of the results that we came back. But I'll tell you what, you know, when you look at now where our brand is today, people are getting results
Yeah.
and they're loving it and they're coming back and they're requesting it. And the product is premium. It's more expensive.
Yeah.
This testing's not cheap, right, Halan?
Nope.
I mean,
Yep.
so that's one of the things when you look at that, and we decided very early on to partner with Alkemist Assured, and so talk to us a little bit about your logo. Your logo is proudly displayed on our
Yeah.
mushrooms, and now it's going to be on our
Yeah.
EPA and DHA. So you've done some testing
Right.
there to ensure
Yeah.
that we're meeting those claims. So talk to me a little bit about Alkemist Assured and what's happening there.
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, that I have a degree in chemistry, but I should have stayed a business major. I sort of identify as a chemist or a marketing guy with a chemistry degree. That's how I identify myself. And so I've always been a fan of marketing. That chemistry is necessary to run a lab, obviously. There is a new endangered species. Maybe it's not new. There's an endangered species, and we talk a lot about regenerative agriculture and the importance of that. No question there. But there's another endangered species, and that's consumer trust. And I think through the last 3 years and then some, we have been confused, lied to, maliciously tricked, and the consumers don't trust as much as they used to. I think there's also an increase in noticing. People are noticing things more, they're paying more attention. And so now is the time, better than ever, to really bolster consumer trust by transparency. And even with the name, true in the name, and doing what is actually right and then sharing it is one of the things, the many things that sets the brand True Grace apart from the others, is that you are doing the testing, and why not share it? And so back to my marketing spirit, I always felt like quality is something that no brands really lead with in our industry. Like you mentioned, marketing through TikTok and flashy celebrity endorsements, or just beautiful boxes on perfect size shelves at the market. But the quality is all supposed to be behind there. By law, you're supposed to do these testing. As mentioned, it's not exactly specific which ones you do, but you're supposed to do testing. And I know very well testing is expensive, and some of our customers spend hundreds of thousands or even millions on testing a year through many labs, and they say nothing about it. So you can imagine like a marketing campaign, you spend $100,000 to develop a new logo or a box, something like that, and then you just put it in a drawer, never to be
Yeah.
seen again. And that's what quality is to this industry, unfortunately. And I'm saying take quality out of the closet. And Alchemist Assured is a vehicle to do that.
And consumers
Alchemist
want to
Assured,
know. I mean, when you poll the
I know.
consumers, I mean,
They
70%
do.
of them want to know, but the quality is the most
do.
important thing to them. So it's like, why
Exactly.
wouldn't you unlock it?
And even if they don't know how to read a HPLC report or an HPTLC report, that doesn't matter. It's the access to that data that makes them feel like their choice is substantiated, their buying choice is substantiated, and then that trust is earned. And then of course they buy a good product, and it does what it's supposed to do, and they return for more and lead happier and healthier lives.
Yeah.
So Alchemist Assured is a marketing campaign really to help our customers who are already doing the right thing share it with the consumers.
And I think True Grace was one of the first brands to
Absolutely.
display
Yeah.
Alchemist Assured with
Yeah.
our USDA certified organic fruiting body mushrooms. And when
Right.
you look at those mushrooms, I mean, the mushroom industry now is exploding. I mean, you've been doing
Yeah.
this a long time. You've seen a lot of herbs, right? Like, talk to
Yeah.
me, like for example, about a lot of our listeners and retailers out there will remember. Turmeric exploded in the natural
Right.
foods industry to support a healthy inflammation response, and then you had a thing like elderberry, during
Right.
2020, when
Right.
everybody was taking their immunosupportive
Right.
dietary supplements and whatnot. But in the elderberry, like, talk to me a little bit about that, because elderberry takes a long time to grow. I mean, it's not like
Right.
you know, when I learned this, and it's like you get all
Yeah.
these companies fly out of the pan, and they're like, oh, we got all this elderberry. It's like,
Yeah.
really? Do you? Like, talk to me a little bit about that.
Right. Well, they didn't. When the pandemic hit, elderberry was very, very hot. Obviously, it was the immune leader somehow. There are other categories, echinacea and all those other herbs, and as well as the mushrooms have been known for thousands of years for having immune benefits. But elderberry was popular, and it was oversold, and we saw a lot of adulterated material, different types of berries, fillers, all sorts of things in that sense. And now I think elderberry testing has gone way down because there's a shift in consumer focus into other things. And as I mentioned before, like the pandemic really woke up people to whether they trusted in government and medicine or Western medicine or not, they still added to their regimens the potential and natural sources of immunity and health. And that's where I think where the mushrooms boomed, really the shroom boom began.
Right.
around the pandemic, around immunity, even about mental health, just memory. We sleep less these days. We're watching too much news or reading too much garbage on the internet. Just having those access to those powerful medicines in the form of mushrooms now is new old, and they've been there for forever before us,
Yeah,
and being
exactly.
taken for thousands of years before refound, and now I think they have a new home, and they're not going anywhere.
Right. And so, it's so what happens a lot. I mean, so I'm a contract manufacturer or whatever, or I'm a broker, right? And I'm
Hmm.
selling some herbs, right? So I
Hmm.
call, True Grace, and I'd be like, okay, I got some great, I don't know,
Hmm.
ashwagandha, all right? And
Right.
then we're like, oh, okay, well, we use ashwagandha.
Right.
Great. Okay, send it to our encapsulator here. So you mean to tell me, like, sometimes that might not even be ashwagandha?
Correct. And I'm not here to sell fear so much. Generally, it's not ashwagandha. It's just poor quality, poor
And what's poor
dried.
quality? Like, what are some of the things that?
Yeah. So I'll give an example. When you make tomato sauce for pasta at home, you don't use tomato root. You use tomato fruit. We
Got
all
it.
know that.
Yeah.
You don't add basil root. You add basil leaf and
Ah.
garlic bulb. Um, and so, an example with ashwagandha, you could cut the material with ashwagandha leaf,
Oh.
which regenerates. Whereas the root, once you pull the root out of the ground, that's it. So it's not that it's becoming poison; it's just becoming dilute, and it's also tricking substandard testing that they can't actually find out. Because if you just measure one chemical or a series of chemicals in a powder, you're missing out on other things that could be off. And testing the right way is really important there. So I doubt that it's not this hypothetical is not ashwagandha. I would say that it's either cut with starch or maltodextrin, which are all inert fillers to add weight, or cut with leaf, or poorly extracted material, poorly dried material, substandard of some sort.
Got it. Okay, interesting. And you mentioned the maltodextrin and a lot of those fillers and different things like that. But in the mushroom space, one of the things early on that we were really looking for in this shroom boom is, when you look at the fruiting body. The
Right,
fruiting body contains a significant amount of beta glucans, for example,
right,
which are a polysaccharide that are very
right,
beneficial, as has immunosupportive effects in our body. And many people are aware of beta glucans. But,
right.
when we were searching high and low for a fruiting body only mushroom,
Mhm.
because a lot of mushrooms are grown on different substrates, right? I mean, when you look
Right,
at a lot of mushrooms growing on wood, for example,
right,
that's a natural substrate in the environment that, these mushrooms will, break down and ferment and do their thing and take the nutrients from that media and convert it into a lot of these medicinal compounds. But then you have
right,
mushrooms that are grown on some starches, right? So,
right.
whether it's oats or sorghum or rice or any of those. And so when we did those testing, we sent it to you. And I
Right.
remember I said, I don't know. I mean, this supplier of ours is saying that this is some pretty good stuff,
Hmm.
but I don't know. I was like, let's
Yep.
send it off to Elan, and I had my director of research involved in this and in
Hmm.
qualifying the ingredient and
Yep.
qualifying the supplier, and all those things. And she was telling me this. Handed her the story, and she said, okay, well, let's send it to Alana. And this was before we were doing Alkemist Assured and any of those
Right.
things. And the test results came back, and she was like, Brian, you're not going to believe this. Like, we wanted 25% beta glucans. Alana's coming back at like 46, 50.
Mhm.
And we're like, okay. And then it's 100%. Alana's saying it's 100% fruiting body. Like, there's no fillers in
Mhm.
there. There's no,
Right.
and we're like, this sounds too good to be true. Let's send them another batch. And we
Mhm.
did. We sent you another batch and you tested it and it came back and we're like, I'll be damned, right? So you
Right.
can actually then test. So you have the HPLC and then you can test if there's fillers in there and starches
Right.
and other things.
Yeah.
Is that the same test or talk? So what is like an
Yep.
HPLC?
Yeah. So there's several tests. Making sure it is what it is could be botanical microscopy, looking at something under the microscope, and that's where you would actually detect fillers like maltodextrin or other starches like potato starch and cornstarch, which are commonly used to add weight to botanicals. They're inert. No one gets sick from
Oh, so you're
cornstarch.
adding weight so you can sell it like per kilo or
Correct.
gotcha.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. That happens. Mycelial mass is kind of the root system of the fruiting body of the mushrooms. So, and I know there are pretty strong, two strong camps on that. philosophy, which I'm not going to get into there. But the fact is, mycelium mass is basically the roots grown on things, and sometimes you get more things than the actual
Yeah,
roots. So
in
you might get
mycelium, in
more
fact,
white.
there's no debate here. I mean, it's not a
Right,
mycelium versus fruiting body
right,
story. There's a lot of
right,
medicinal compounds that come from
right,
mycelium. I think, but you
correct,
just want to make sure that you're getting 100% myceliated extract
correct,
versus what you're
right,
saying
right,
essentially
right.
is, does the product have other things in it that are
Well, if
not?
you think about the speed of sales, if you want to rush something, you can pull it out of the ground sooner. So if the mycelium mass hasn't done its thing, you're going to get more barley or substrate than actual
Ah,
mycelium mass. If they haven't fully penetrated the soil for which they're growing, whether it's the root or the barley, then you end up getting more barley in your product than mycelium mass. Fruiting body doesn't have that same issue, obviously, because you're above ground parts, no root structures at all.
gotcha.
So and we then take that sample and we can measure it by HPTLC, which does a chemical fingerprint, kind of like genetics, but instead of proteins, we're looking at plant chemicals or fungal chemicals, and we match them up to control samples. And then I believe is the technique we use to measure the fungal compounds. So it actually measures single compounds and the quantity, so that you can safely put that quantity on your label, and the consumers will know exactly what they're taking and why.
Got it. So if
This,
I'm a
this
store
is
owner,
yeah.
if I'm a, yeah, that's the challenge, right? I'm an associate at a health food store, and I worked at a health food store when I was a kid, when I was 15. I'm born and
Mhm.
raised in this industry. I love this industry. I wanna regenerate this industry back to what it was, before it was all about, how fast can I build a company and sell it, right?
Right,
And that's not what we're trying to do here at True Grace. These fine
right,
independent retailers that are taking and putting their money they've chosen,
right.
Alon. They said, you know what,
Yeah,
I can try and, build up 30, 40 stores and try and sell it to some big, or they can say, you know what, I just want to help people. That's how a lot of
right,
this starts. You have a lot of these health food store owners. I've heard the stories like, how did you get into the business? Oh, well, my dad or my mom suffered from this, and, or I
yeah.
had this ailment, and, I trekked on this journey and I became passionate about it. But how do we help these retailers, Alana? How do we help them in the stores when that customer comes in and says, I want a lion's mane, to support
Mhm.
nerve support or whatever.
Right.
How does the retailer know, or how can we help them to
Yeah,
put that
that,
product in their hand and know that it's going to provide the results that consumer is looking for?
it's confusing. The vitamin aisles have grown bigger and bigger in supermarkets, even in, big box retailers. There's a big section now devoted to nutritional supplements, and it's a sea of better sameness. There's not much other than a pretty logo or a transparent bottle to catch someone's eye, and so fortunately and unfortunately, it does require effort on the brands like True Grace is able to train the stores. And how you guys are doing it with the small retailers first makes a lot of sense, because you're able to get in and get that touch, explain why your product is different and how, and the depth of your product's difference. It's not just not. I mean, sourcing is impeccable, bottling, packaging is impeccable, but like we're talking about here, the quality is also impeccable, and you have the bravery, because you're doing it right, and to share it. And why not? And the reason answer why not is because they're not doing it right, or there's some other reason I haven't figured out yet. But the fact that this is available to the consumers allows the salesperson to say this product over that product, not just because they brought a sweatshirt to them at the last seminar and they're wearing it today. It's really about why. I mean, you go to the store, you see them wearing the brands for which they're going to sell me today, and that's great. But there's a reason behind True Grace that you can actually sell better than just all the other things that are commonplace in the market today. You actually have the quality and you share it, which is unlike most brands, unfortunately.
It's hard, man.
As
I'll tell you,
fortunate.
it's hard when you're building the brand and you go into
Mhm.
these stores and the things you hear. It's like, oh, you got to do more TikTok. You got to do
Right.
more Instagram. You got to do.
Yeah.
Do you know how? It, and I'm starting a new campaign. Okay,
Mhm.
I'm going out in this industry, and it's the simplest campaign, Alon. It,
Mhm.
you want to hear it?
I do.
It's called Read the Label.
Right.
We're going on a Read the Label campaign
Yeah.
because how many
Yeah.
times I'm like, I go into some of these stores and I'm like, you're really recommending that product? Have you read the label? you know, or you get these people that are come in and then like they come in and, oh, I saw this on TikTok and, you know, do you carry
Yeah.
it? Just because a consumer comes in and
Yeah.
asks for it doesn't mean that it's the highest of
That's
quality. They're spending,
yeah. No, it's
these brands are spending 80 to $100,000 a month
right.
on Instagram and TikTok and some of these social media platforms. Now we're choosing, I don't know, I mean, sometimes I question it. We're choosing to put it into Alkemist Assured. Right or wrong, I don't know where the chips are going to fall in 2 or 3
Right.
years. I hope that the quality closet is opened like you say it is, but it gets challenging.
I don't personally take medical or nutritional advice from TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, or even mainstream media. As we have seen the last 3 or 4 years, have been very confusing and inconsistent. I also don't take medical advice from unhealthy doctors or financial advice from people who don't have any money. So, reading the labels is what you get to do next. And if the label brings you to a story about their sourcing, and label brings you to a story about the quality, and in fact also results for the bottle I'm holding in my hand, I don't know what better option there would be, because that doesn't exist too much in our industry. Lots of cool marketing, lots of celebrity endorsements, things like that, but not the full level of transparency that we get here with True Grace and Alchemist Assured. So I'm gonna vote for Alchemist Assured.
Awesome. Yeah, me too. And we're going to go out and we're going to talk. So are other brands starting to really support and put
Yeah,
it out there, you know, as far
yeah.
as Alchemist
I'm a
Assured?
long game guy, so it's a slow process. I don't hire social media people to do my work. I do what we're doing here. I get up on stage and talk about it. But yeah, it's caught on. The original idea was really for consumer centric products like yourselves, but actually, we're getting a lot more traction in the ingredients side now. So the brands that you are buying these ingredients from are going to show up with Alchemist Assured
Ah,
material
that's
from the get
fantastic.
go, which
That
will
makes it
help.
easy. That makes it easy for
Right,
us.
exactly. And I now have a really easy way of recommending finished products and contract manufacturers and ingredient suppliers, because I generally only take what I test, and now I can very easily share what it is that I test with Alchemist Assured
Right.
to friends and families and colleagues and whatnot.
Yep, exactly. And so then, you know, and that's where we do other testing, right? So we have our mushrooms, those are 100% Alchemist Assured. We now have our fish oil,
Right.
that is Alchemist Assured. You
Very
don't do
exciting.
like probiotic testing, right, or any of
Not
that?
yet, but
No.
we're a small company figuring out where we're going to go next, and that's definitely on the radar.
Yeah.
That and or vitamins and we're trying to stay true to our soul as well and our mission, and not grow too fast. As you mentioned, people bring up vitamin companies just to sell, and people bring up labs just to sell, and we're not. We collectively are not those brands. We're
Right.
not. We have an intention and a desire to fulfill our missions and do it right.
Exactly. And it's when you look at a lot of the companies, they'll come in and the reps will be like, oh, you know, we third party test, go to our website and look at our
Right.
testing. And so then I get all panicked. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're
Right.
displaying this stuff
They
on their
don't.
website. And the reps are telling me that this company's doing this and it's all over their web.
Right.
And then I go to the website, Elan, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, I'll be damned if they didn't just have their own marketing person
Yep.
create a flippin' sheet of paper
Yep.
that says check passed,
Right.
check
Yeah,
passed. I'm like,
it's a logo microscope for a beaker, and that's about as good as it gets.
I mean,
And
like,
I'll
come on,
I'll be
seriously?
critical. Even some of the most transparent brands in our industry with clear bottles and beautiful packaging have a lot of work to do to get transparent.
Yeah,
They're starting to just now to show some data, but even then it's in sort of a infograph version, not the actual test from the actual lab,
right.
which I think really is meaningful. Not that consumers know anything about Alchemist Labs, or maybe will they or ever, but the fact that having those results, the actual real results available to them, I think is important.
Got it. And so that's why True Grace, we partner with another company that does, testing on our
Sure.
probiotics, and we put that on
Right.
our logo. Our multivitamin is one where,
Right.
there's a lot of ingredients that go into that
Yeah.
recipe. And
Yes.
so
Yeah. That's
we're
cool. Good one.
testing with multiple different labs, whether it's,
Yeah.
Eurofins or some of these big ones, and then,
Right.
putting all that in together. But
As
the
you should.
mushrooms are easy because it's like, hey, hold
Yeah.
on. Is this
Yeah.
a mushroom? Is it a fruiting body? And is it loaded
Right.
with filler? And you come
Right.
back and say, no, it's all good,
No.
right?
Exactly.
And that's what Alchemist
Yeah.
Assured does. So,
It's easy to do because you guys do all the testing. So why not share it?
Yeah, that's
And
fantastic.
some of your competitors simply don't.
Yeah.
And that's why they won't share it.
And I've been in your room, in your lab. Christy and I have
Mm-hmm.
toured your lab,
Yep.
many times, and it's an amazing
Yeah.
place. And you go into that room. What is that room you have in the middle where, like, if
The
there's a
herbarium.
fire or something, it just seals up?
Yeah, the herbarium. It's our invaluable collection of reference materials from almost 30 years of testing. So it's all a room full of plants.
Gosh.
Smells wonderful.
Way back. I mean, like, you have herbs from,
Almost.
and that's like the original.
Yeah.
Like, this
Yeah.
is the herb, right? And you've tested
Right.
it, and
Right.
So you take that sample, and then you'll test it against a material,
Correct.
and say
Yeah.
if in fact that is what it is, what it says it is. Wow, so that's great.
Right.
So awesome. Well, it's been a great show, and I think that for one of our first shows, it's one of the most important because it comes down to quality. You're
Yep.
as a retailer, when you're choosing to put a product on your shelf and put it into the hands of
Right.
somebody that's starting their health journey, if it doesn't work and it doesn't
coming back.
provide the results, that's your name. That's your
And
store
they're not
name,
coming back.
right?
Exactly.
So what advice would you give our listeners out there, Elan, as they move forward down their quality journey?
I would say don't trust the science, challenge science, ask questions, read labels, ask more questions. And if anyone has any problem about answering questions or tells you to mind your own business or not ask those questions, they've got something to hide. And I would run from that answer. Transparency is not a new thing. It's the original thing. And the new thing is not sharing and hiding. And I think that brands should have no problem sharing their sourcing, sharing the manufacturing process, and sharing their test results for the exact bottle that's in your hand, because they should have all of that data all ready to go. And if there's any excuses, not. It's more of like a internal operation thing. So challenge, question.
Got
Never
it.
stop.
So essentially what you're saying is you should be true,
You should be true.
right? And that's what we're
Easy.
doing here at True Grace, and true to
Right
the
thing to do.
retailer, true to ourselves, true to
Right.
the planet. Every decision that we make in our organization starts
Yep.
with that.
Absolutely.
How truthful are we being, and transparent, and all those types of things. And it's a journey, Elan. We're not
Yep.
perfect at True Grace. God Almighty, we're not.
Pretty perfect.
But we're on the journey, right?
Yep.
And our intention is to be true. And that's what's built into the mission and the vision of True Grace.
Right.
And that's why we're, out here reading the labels together, regenerating nutrition from the ground up, because in fact, the only difference between soil and soul is you. So thank you so much, Elan. I appreciate your time. I know you're busy. So thank you again for sharing with our listeners why quality is so important.
It's an honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Soil and Soul. Spread the word. Spread the mission. We're in this together.